Welcome in, Hawks fans. Your boy Bryce Lewis back at it again for another Bleav in Hawks episode. As you can see, we're back again with a special guest, a guy I've actually known for a little bit. First time on the pod, Alex Walker from Channel 9 in Orlando with them covering Orlando Magic, all the Orlando-based, Florida-based teams close to that area. Welcome on to the show, sir. How are you?
Hey, what's going on, man? I've been watching your podcast for a bit. It's been fun watching you up there and crushing it with Hawks coverage. So there's a lot of cross sections between the Magic and Hawks. We'll get into that in a little bit, but man, it's good to be on your show.
Yeah, definitely appreciate you taking time out, man. I know it's a work day for you, so appreciate it for sure, man. So we're here to talk about some Magic, even though it's Bleav Hawks. We're here to talk about some Magic, and we'll, like you said, we'll make the connection between the two teams soon. But I just want to ask you, Alex. Obviously, Magic came off some people would say unexpected season of success. Making the playoffs, pushing Cleveland to 7 games, even though you guys lost in Game 7, but was close. Can you just talk about this season that was just from the beginning to end? What was there an energy maybe that was around the team that was like, oh, we're expected to be better than expected? Was there did you think maybe there was a chance they could make the playoffs, or maybe they would just be a play-in team? What was your overall thoughts as you reflect on this season?
I look back at Media Day back when the season started, and we do sit downs with just about every player, the head coach, Jeff Weltman, president of basketball ops of the team, Jamal Mosley, the head coach. We talk with these guys, and sometime the first year I was here, no one really mentioned the P word. No one was like playoffs. It was more of like, we know what we have to do. We're just trying to grow, develop. This Media Day, not a single player shied away from saying playoffs. So there was a belief in that building from day one this year that if we do not make the playoffs, I think it is a failure, which at the time I was like, you know what? I think if they're right in that play-in range, I consider that a successful season, a chance late, make the playoffs, maybe get that 8-7 seed. Did I think they were good enough to be a 5 seed, close to being possibly a 4? Heck, if things happened, a 3 in the Eastern Conference. I thought they were a year ahead of schedule in that sense. And I think, to be honest, winning a playoff series this year, to me, would have felt ahead of schedule as well. But when you look at what happened this year, you won 47 games, you win 3 in the playoffs, so 50 wins total. So you go from 22 wins 2 years ago to 47 and then 50 when you count the playoffs this year. And you got a unique situation and a great situation if you're the Magic, where you have your top 3 scorers are 22 years old or younger. It's Paolo Banchero. He's proven, you watched him all season long, that this dude has the chance to be a megastar in this league. You have Franz Wagner, who, 1 of 15 in the Game 7s. You're going to think about that all summer, but does not diminish what he did this year. He showed his glimpses of star power as well. Then you got Jalen Suggs, who is going to be an enemy in every single playoff city he's going to be in his playoff career. But the head of that defensive snake makes him a top 5 defensive team. So when you have your top 3 scorers that can go get you a bucket being 22 or younger, and you have a lot of those guys still on their rookie deals, you have $30+ million in cap space projected. If it could be even more, this team's in a very unique situation to take a big step next year with their pieces they have.
Yeah, and like you said, I mean, cap is something that, especially when you're building a team like Orlando is, you're going to have money, and you want guys to develop, like you mentioned, 3 guys right there, to say, okay, whenever we get to a point, maybe where they are right now, we have money to spend, we can upgrade a couple of positions, maybe get some key veterans. But can you just talk about, the playoffs for the Magic? You were, there. You experienced the atmosphere. You experienced the city itself being excited for the team. And, watching it from home on TV, it seemed like, Magic fans, that arena was going crazy. I haven't heard that arena go crazy like that. It feels like since the Dwight Howard days. I mean, it feels like it's been a while, a little bit since that.
You're absolutely correct. It has not been like that since the Dwight Howard days. And as a matter of fact, Dwight Howard was there for Game 6. In that big win, and he hasn't been around in a while. It was great for him to get a warm reception, and a well-deserved one at that. A lot of the current generation of Magic fans' best memories have been attached to that Dwight, Rashard Lewis team, and so it was great to see him back in the building. And the Kia Center was unbelievable and far exceeded my expectations. I mean, obviously, I've covered the team for 2 full seasons now, and I don't have anything to draw from the past. But from talking to fans, it hasn't been this loud in a long time. Let's remember, this franchise has not won a playoff series in 14 years. They beat the Charlotte Bobcats, who don't exist anymore. That's how long it's been. It was 2010. And they hadn't won a home playoff game, Bryce, since that Hawks series back in, I believe it was 2011. I believe the series won 6. Magic lost in 6. I believe I'm blanking on his name. I believe that was the series where Josh Smith dominated most of that series. But they hadn't won a home playoff game in 13 years. And so when they won game 3, it was so much like frustration and a decade of anxiety just being released. And then you go and blow them out again. They led by 43 in game 3. They outscored them like 61-29 in the second half in game 4. And so you're looking at the series going, okay, if this game goes to 6, which it did, they're going to win at home again. And what it boiled down to this series is, I think if the Magic were the 4 seed, they would have won in 7 in Orlando versus Cleveland winning. And it was that competitive and close. At the end of the day, when you have your star player, Donovan Mitchell, score 89 points over 2 games, it's hard to overcome. But that building electric, the fan base electric. So many fans just told us how nice it was to experience that again, especially your fans that were there, your older fans that were there. I mean, this franchise has only been around for 35 years, Bryce. I mean, you have fans around that were there for Shaq and Penny, then they were there for Dwight, and then they were there for Paolo. So a lot of nostalgia combined with promise for the future with a lot of these fans. So it's pretty cool to see.
Yeah, definitely. And that's the biggest thing you can give a city is excitement, a future, something that they can get behind. And speaking of the future, this could be looked at as a big offseason for Orlando. You know, you were a 5 seed this year. You went 7 with Cleveland. You feel like, okay, well, only place up is forward. We're going up. What do you think Orlando needs to prioritize this offseason in terms of we need to upgrade here if they're going to take another step?
We had exit interviews. I say we. The Magic had exit interviews on Monday. So had the chance to talk to every single player on the roster, Jamal Mosley, Jeff Weltman, all with some very interesting thoughts. And Jeff Weltman, very, very smart mind, always has a vision. I mean, when you do a rebuild like the Magic have been doing, you have to have a guy that has a vision, and these pieces have been lining up very nicely, and he's done a great job. So now we talked to him, okay, what's next? What is the next step? What do you prioritize this offseason, whether it be the draft, free agency, et cetera, to elevate this team? And what he said, if you look at one thing, you say, you got to address this starting here. It's shooting. It's 3-point shooting. What burned him in game 7 in Cleveland? Jalen Suggs and Franz Wagner, your second and third leading scorers, go 3 for 28. You're not going to win games. Paolo can score 50. You're still going to lose. We saw with Donovan Mitchell in game 6, he scored 50. The rest of the team didn't do anything, and he lost. So prioritizing 3-point shooting. Now, that being said, Jeff Weltman at exit interview said, okay, do we go out there? It's not the best free agency class. Do we go out there and try to add – do we try to go out and add a Klay Thompson if you want to go the veteran 3-point shooting route? Do you want to go out add a Malik Monk, who is a great 3-point shooter? We got to remember, Jamal Mosley does not add pieces. Jeff Weltman does not add pieces unless you play defense. So think about that when we're talking about all this future stuff. If you aren't committed to defense, you're not coming to Orlando. They've said that. That's just how it is. And so you got to add a 3-point shooter. What he said, though, was he's looking at – you look at some of the guards you already have on the roster that underachieved from 3-point range this year. Your 2 lottery pick rookies, Anthony Black, Jett Howard. Last year's pick, Caleb Houston. Guys that were drafted to shoot and guys that did not perform in that department this year. So he said, okay, we can add a shooter, or we can hope that internally we develop to the point where we become a 3-point shooting team. I'd say the former is more likely because I think fans are clamoring for, like, do we need an answer at 3-point shooting now? Like, there's this window here where you have Paolo, Franz, Jalen on rookie contracts. You have a bunch of cap space. Like, do we want to wait a couple of years, or do we want to make a big move now and try to win now? So it's definitely a dilemma. Atlanta's been attached to Paul George and other names out there. It's like, Do I see Orlando going out to add Paul George? It's been a long time since the Magic have gone out and tried to land a star like that. But it's also been a long time since this team has won. So who knows? Maybe with this new front office, they go out and try to make a splash like that. But you got to play defense if you want to kind of – I'll say it a million times. These names that come up attached to the Magic, if you don't play defense, you can't play. That's just their identity, and that's just the way they play. So something to think about.
Yeah, definitely. And, this kind of takes me into now this Hawks Magic connection, why I brought you on. I just want to get your thoughts on this. One of the biggest things I think I see a lot of people say when they talk about Orlando is just they need to upgrade at point guard. They Cole's been fine, Fultz has been fine, but they need that guard to pair with Paolo.
Correct.
Obviously, Atlanta has two guards who people feel like are going to be in the trade market this offseason. But the most common name that I've heard connected to Orlando is DeJounte Murray.
Yep.
People think that could be a really good fit. He goes back to his natural position at the point. He's a guy who has improved his three-point shooting in Atlanta the last 2 years. So you're getting an improved three-point shooter than what he was in San Antonio. A guy who, I don't know how many highlights or games you've seen with the Hawks outside of maybe when the Magic play them. He's had some big games. He showed he can pick up the scoring if needed. So I just want to get your thoughts on that. I don't know. I know we're in the same division, so I don't know how much that plays a part in if they're going to want to make a move like that. But I really think that would be a good deal because we need more wings and defense. You guys need upgraded guard and some offensive shooting. And it feels like this naturally could fit here if we could maybe find a common deal.
And, a lot of when you try to find some commonalities between front offices, I don't know how much this front office and Atlanta's front office communicate. Obviously, you see these like natural partnerships across the league. I don't know how much Atlanta and Orlando talk, but yeah, I do think the needs do sort of line up, Bryce. You make a great point. And DeJounte is a name that, in this Orlando bubble has popped up, and deservedly so, because it makes sense. He's a volume scorer. He's a guy that at any point you say, DeJounte, go get us 2. He gets you 2. He can get you 3 too. His three-point shooting, I was impressed by his ability to hit that more frequently this year. And so, yeah, DeJounte's a name that makes sense. And when you talk about in return, you need what? You need some wings, and you need some guys that play defense. There is a log jam of wings on this Magic team that could be moved. And so
their name was Jonathan Isaac.
Jonathan Isaac is a guy that he's got 1 year left in his contract that's not guaranteed. I think they owe him $8 million. I believe the team options for $17 million next year. Jonathan Isaac, what I love about what he did this year is whether the Magic keep him or move him, he's gotten another chapter in his career. He proved this year that he can be healthy. A few bumps on the radar this year, but overall, considering what it was since 2020, he hasn't had a season in a long time where he proved why he was a lottery pick out of Florida State. Dude's incredibly impressive defensively. They call him the minister of defense for a reason. He got exposed a bit in the series against Cleveland, I think, because he was going up against some smaller guards, and it was really, you saw him struggle a bit there. But typically, you're not. Cleveland went small with Jared Allen being out, but typically, if he's matching up against a guy at his position, impressive. He showed that he can hit the 3 ball this year. His jumper has been impressive, and so J.I. is going to come up in a lot of discussions, and I'm happy for him because he's a good dude, and he also has proven that he's healthy. Would have hated to see another injury this year where he just completely takes him off any sort of trade market, but yeah, J.I. is intriguing. I don't know if he stays or goes, but he could be involved in something, so we'll see.
Yeah, that'll be interesting to see. Because ideally in my head, my trade factory head, I think, obviously when you make trades like that, especially when you're acquiring a player, if that was the guy they wanted, DeJounte, you probably do have to give up, a couple of people that maybe someone that you don't want to, but yeah, he's an upgrade. We need him. We think he can be. And I think DeJounte can get back to what people thought he was defensively in San Antonio. I just think you're having him guard 2s, which means he can be switched on the 3s. And that just wasn't the best for him defensively. I said, ideally, if I'm Atlanta, I would love to get Jalen Suggs back if I could. And, I don't know, like maybe Murray in the first, and then you get Suggs and Isaacs, and maybe that could be something they talk about. So it'll be interesting to see, if that even is a conversation that is.
I will say, just from this was a contract year for Jalen Suggs in terms of you got to show that you got to show us something this year for us to invest in you.
Mm.
And after what I saw this year, despite some wishy-washy shooting performances throughout the series and the season, what he brings defensively, what he brings as Coach Mosley calls him, the head of the snake on defense, what he brings in that locker room, I would be stunned if the Magic moved Jalen Suggs. I really would. Based on how highly this team, this front office values him, I wouldn't be surprised if when you're talking about there's a chance that Jalen Suggs and Franz Wagner get their raises this offseason if that happens. And I think there's a realistic scenario where Jalen gets that first offseason contract potentially. I just, based on what the conversations I've heard and just listening to Jeff Weltman talk about Jalen, he seems to me, I don't want to say he's untouchable. Like your untouchables are Paolo and Franz. And outside of that, I think Jalen's like a borderline untouchable. Unless unless something like amazing pops up and you're like, oh man, we really hate to do this, but like we got to, Yeah. But I would be really shocked if they move Jalen Suggs. And everyone, I mean, the Hawks aren't the only team that want Jalen Suggs because what he provides, and it's the reason why I think Orlando keeps him.
Yeah, and so that's something interesting for you guys because you could go either way. Free agency, trade. You have money, but you also gotta extend some guys, and that is obviously you guys are gonna be interesting because you're a part with this new luxury tax aprons and things like that. Like you want to resign your guys, but you don't want to get to that tier 2 because then it starts restricting what you actually can do with your roster. That's what Phoenix is going through right now. But it'll be interesting for sure to see how that works. And just so based off what you know right now about Paolo, he, draft him. He was a stud his rookie years. Looked like he took another step this year. What would your expectations be maybe for him going into year 3? Is it now becoming, is it, I don't want to say take an Anthony Edwards leap because I mean, Ant's playing at a high level.
Sure. Yeah. MVP borderline level. Yeah,
exactly. But like, what is it about Paolo that you feel like, if he can get here, the Magic are going to be scary?
Yeah. I think Paolo's a guy where it's funny looking back at, most drafts, who's going number 1 way before the draft happens. If you remember that draft, no one had any idea if the Magic were going to go with Jabari Smith, Paolo Banchero, Chet Holmgren. Like no one, until it was said, even in circles in Orlando, nobody knew. And when you look back, I mean, sure, after Chet got healthy, he's been really impressive. But Paolo, looking back, surefire number 1 pick, a guy that will get a max contract with the Magic whenever that time comes. When you look at him and what he's done in this year 2, first-time All-Star, and I think he's at the point now, based on what we saw this year, he will be an All-Star for years to come. I'd be surprised if he took a step back next year where he wasn't an All-Star. He's a guy that when you need a bucket, he will get you a bucket. He, in terms of his strength and his ability to put his head down and get to the rack, I haven't really seen many guys that have befuddled him this year outside of maybe Isaac Okoro. In that game 7, they switched him on him. He gave him fits. But throughout the year, he's a mismatch nightmare. He's a guy that can get to the basket. He can shoot the 3 and did it pretty consistently and just showed those flashes of star power. You look at game 6, that game was tied at 89. Goes down, he hits a 3. Next possession, hoop and the foul, and that place erupted. And you're like, this is a star. You could just see it happen. And so I don't know necessarily like what aspects of his game he needs to take that leap. I just think we asked him, like, what do you want to work on? He's like, man, everything. Like, I just want to get my mid-range to be a little more consistent, which to me was pretty darn consistent this year. and just working on the little things defensively, like being able to match up with anybody. But with anybody, his basketball IQ is going to improve. He's going to get stronger. I think what he learned this year is he now has the respect of the rest of the league. I think after year 1, everyone's like, he could be good, but we'll see. After year 2, the first thing Donovan Mitchell says on the ABC broadcast is that dude's going to be a monster in the NBA. Like, you don't typically see that happen, especially right after a hard-fought series. Everyone on that team knows, dang, like this dude's going to be a stud. And so when you get that when you get that respect from around the league, I think he'll continue to take leaps and be a guy that, like, hey, go out there and get us 35 and he can do it. Like, I think that's what you can see from him next year. If he's not going to average 30 plus, I don't think, but he's a guy that can upper 20s. He can really dominate a basketball game, which is so impressive.
Yeah, he's a very impressive player. Really, really gives Orlando just a bright future. And, it's interesting too. I said when I talk about the Hawks Magic season series, every game outside of one was like very competitive. I felt like these teams, regardless of record, it's crazy. The Hawks, not a good defensive team, but they always was never a high scoring game with Orlando. I mean, offensively was what people would say is their weak point, and it showed at times. And it's like, man, it feels like these teams are so like equal, but yet they're different in style.
Their style is so different. But yeah, the game, every time the Hawks play them, it just seemed like it was going down to the wire for some reason. Yeah, it'd be fun to see a playoff series with these two if Atlanta gets their pieces in order as well, which I think they can too as well.
Yeah, so that'll be interesting to see. But speaking of playoffs, I want to get your thoughts on the current NBA playoffs right now. I think it's funny. Both conferences have their own stories. East feels like Boston should run through the entire conference. They shouldn't be challenged, but we don't know. Right now it looks like they're going to handle Cleveland, but we'll see. There's only been a game. Western Conference, you're getting defending champs are on the ropes potentially. You got why am I going blank here? What's the OKC, youngest team in the league?
OKC and Dallas, yeah, it's a fun, intriguing series as well. You got a guy that probably got robbed at MVP votes with Shea, but that's a different story.
That's an open debate for anybody. But and then obviously, Knicks and Pacers has been a good series. Overall, I feel like this playoffs, man, the refs have been swallowing the whistle. Defense has met more. So because you're not seeing like 130, 120. You're seeing a lot of like 101, 103 games, which could bode well for Orlando's future if that continues to be the case. But just give me your overall thoughts on the playoffs so far. Has this been maybe one of the better playoffs we've had in the last 2 years, or how are you feeling about it?
It's been fun, and I will say this: like, ratings are down, and I think people are saying like, you look at the 8 teams left, and it's when you don't have a LeBron or a KD or a Steph Curry in Golden State, people think, oh, it's going to lose luster. I think it's the opposite. Everyone's like, man, if the Lakers and the Warriors get in, and I'm like, there's a reason why they had to fight to get in. Like, they're not good teams. They're just not. So let's focus on the actual storylines and all these bright young stars that have arrived now. I want to start out west real quick. Man, Anthony Edwards, I will say, has been one of the more shocking ascensions to stardom, and I've seen in a long time. Dude, I covered, like, when we were in Lexington, man, like, I remember covering him against Kentucky, and he didn't score in a half. And I'm like, this guy's good, but, like, he went number 1. It was that weird COVID draft. I'm like, I mean, okay. And you look back, you're like, I mean, he's unbelievable. I mean, he's one of the most enjoyable players to just sit back and watch. The joy he plays with, and the way he talks about his teammates. I mean, everyone made fun of him. He's like, well, they got KD, we got Jaden McDaniels. It's like, dude, Jaden's a stud. And maybe part of that confidence stems from how highly Ant talks about him. Like, all these big stars over the years, they talk about their teammates like that. And so that's been fun. I'm shocked that they won both games in Denver. Denver that's right. And Denver better figure it out, or they're gonna be knocked out quick. And I think at this point, Minnesota wins that series. OKC is so fun to watch. I love when that Oklahoma City market has a good team, because that fan base goes nuts.
Yeah,
that's been awesome.
Great.
I think Luka Doncic, he's a little hobbled right now, but I hope he gets healthy to the point where that series goes. I want Kyrie to shine on that stage again. So it'd be fun to see that. But out east, I think Boston runs through Cleveland. But when I'm very intrigued by the New York Knicks. And I'll say this, as a Pennsylvania guy, as a guy that has a lot of friends that are both Philly Sixers fans and Villanova fans, how excruciating is it when 3 dudes you watched win a national title are then torching you in a playoff series? I think one of the coolest storylines, Bryce, in this playoffs is you have this Villanova trio and DiVincenzo, Brunson, and Hart just seemingly every single night torching their opponent and having fun doing so. And so that's been really cool to watch. I think, honestly, a Boston-New York series would be awesome. I really do. And I don't think Boston would crush in that. I think it would be a very competitive series. But, there aren't these mega stars in like a LeBron, KD, Steph type way. But I think there are still so many fun matchups in both the Western and Eastern Conference. And I think no matter what, we'll have a really fun finals coming up.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, too, people like to look at this playoff as the changing of the guard. These are the new stars. How will the league respond with them in the playoffs? And I said, I think the playoffs have been great, too. I just think I think in the media especially, we kind of just adapt to the names. Name.
Yep.
And not.
Instead of players and storylines.
Not the, the actual talent themselves. So I think it's really big that they've been able to shine on the stage, and all the matchups have the potential to hopefully, continue a bit further, be great, and everything under the sun. So my last question to you, though, so I'm going to put you on the spot.
All right.
As of right now, obviously, you've been through a round. Who do you see in the NBA Finals, and who do you see winning it?
Let's see. Let's forecast here. I don't want to think too much into it because I just want my gut intuition, if you will. I think Boston out of the East. There's so much pressure on Boston, but I think they've had enough past experiences of coming up short where they're like, all right, enough of that. Like, it's time. It's time to be in the finals again if you're the Celtics. In the Western Conference, it'd be a Western Conference final of what? Minnesota OKC would be fun. Man, I would love a Minnesota. I would love a Timberwolves Celtics finals. I think that'd be great. I think that's a very likely scenario. Would the ratings be great? I don't think so. Sometimes in TV we get caught up in Minneapolis is big, but in terms of is it it's not a small market team, but but in terms of the way the players match up, I don't think there are two teams that have as much depth in the NBA as Boston and Minnesota. So that would be awesome. So give me Boston, Minnesota. I think that'd be great.
Yeah, I think that's becoming the trendy popular pick right now. I think that's becoming this looks like the two best teams right now in the league. So if that happens, I think it would be a great series. I think it can go 6-7 easily. Minnesota monster defensive team. Celtics seem like the best team in basketball all season long.
Yep.
So that stop those clashes of styles and matchups would be absolutely, I think, fantastic, and it would be really good basketball that we can see on display. But Alex, I'm not going to keep you any longer. I know you got other stuff you got to do. So before I let you go, let people know where they can find you on social.
Sure, man. Alex Walker TV on Twitter, or I guess we call it X now. So Alex Walker. That's my main medium. Instagram, Alex Walker as well. I'd love to interact with you guys. And hey, Bryce, let's hope that there's some sort of cross section here this summer between Atlanta, Orlando, that I think they can help each other. And maybe we'll cross paths down the line, man. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate you.
Yeah, definitely, man. Appreciate you taking time out, coming on, man, talking, man. So that's Alex. I'm Bryce. This was your Bleav in Hawks podcast. Y'all know what it is. We'll see you next time.